we're going to do the quick CMA. Again, we're comparing listings against themselves. So I like to use this as a cover sheet. So we're going to do the cover page, remove side by side by status, remove statistical summary. So I'm just going to keep these two, and I'm going to include the reports. And then when I click on view, I see the listings side by side up at the top, and that would be like the first page of the report, which is really cool. And then so your client gets to see all that. Okay, this one has 3 bedrooms, that one has 4, you know, whatever it is. Because if they start digging into the actual reports, there's so much information, it kind of overwhelms. And I know from personal experience, like once you've seen the 3rd or 4th house, you can't remember what the first one had. So, you know, that information as a cover sheet is a really cool option. So go back to our search results. The key thing here that you may have missed is if you need to search for like open houses or tour of home dates, I'm not sure if that's used in your area, but you can plug in a number and then go from there. Now, the final one we're going to do is we are going to just do some basic stats. I want to see everything that is sold since the beginning of the year in Rocky Mountain to get some basic numbers. So how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to start a new quick search. We're going to do the statistical CMA now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to status. We're going to do closed. And let's do, again, since the beginning of the year. So 1/1/2020. And we're going to do just the city of Rocky Mount. Now, I can do the city of Rocky Mount, but I realize that your board is more than just the city of Rocky Mount. So it may make more sense to go to this box that says add a field to the search. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the word listing, because what I'm looking for is listing selling association. I'm just going to do the Rocky Mount Association. And so scroll down. There you go, Rocky Mount. And so we have 2,293 sold listings since the beginning of the year. That's fine. I don't care if that number is really, really high, because statistical CMA is all about stats. Now, your full CMA, you'd obviously not use that many. That'd be ridiculous. And so it's actually the full and the quick CMA are limited to 150 results. If you have more than 150, your stats CMA is the only thing you can do. But that's fine. We want this. So we're going to use these results. And I'm going to go up to CMA. And I'm going to use all results right here. Use all results. So you'll even notice that the full CMA and the quick CMA, they are completely, they're grayed out because you have more 150. So I'm going to do the statistical CMA, which is already defaulted, and click on next step. Now, once this loads, if you're curious how appraisers do the Fannie Mae 1004MC, this is how they do it. But the things we're looking for is, you know, you may want to do median calculation, personal preference. It doesn't always bring back data, but I'll do it. And then this is the key part. Group the statistical CMA by, and it gives you a drop down. Now, status is the default, which makes no sense here because we purposely did just close listings. But this is where it gets fun. You can sort by all these different things. You could do it by high schools. You could do it by, you know, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms. But what I really like is the subdivision one. Because like I said before, my example last hour, I had a realtor when I was an MLS director last year says, hey, how can I use Flexmls to focus on working open houses to get more business? So this is what we did. We did a statistical CMA and did the subdivisions to see, okay, where are the hot subdivisions? Where are all the sales? And he would find like 2 or 3 subdivisions that had a huge chunk of sales. Then what he would do is he was working for a large branch like Coldwell Banker or Remax, you know, bunch of realtors. And so he'd offer to work the open houses for those experienced realtors. And what he did by doing that is he had a lot of people coming because he knew it was a hot area. So he'd get a lot of traffic. He'd get their information and they may not have been interested in that property, but he got potential clients that way. So I'm gonna click on view. So what this does now is, since the beginning of the year, this gives us statistical market analysis for all the different subdivisions. So we have the number of listings. So this is the first thing I look at. Then we have, sale list price. This is why I like to include the median. Sold price per square foot heated, days on market. And so if we just start scrolling through, we might see something that really jumps out. Okay, Ashboro West has 6 sales. Autumn Ridge has 4. So these are all the subdivisions in Rocky Mountain Association. So so we're gonna have hundreds of them. But if you scroll through, Belmont Lake Preserve, 42 solds since the beginning of the year. So this is like some very valuable information. That is a really hot area. Now could it be a hot area because it's a new subdivision that just spec homes are selling them? I don't know. You're the pro, but you could dig into that, but write down that name. But just all kinds of so breakdown. So Brookstone has 5. So I'm not going to scroll through all this. Obviously, there are hundreds, but this gives a breakdown for the subdivisions. And subdivision isn't the only thing that you can do. I mean, remember, we talked, you could do bedrooms or bathrooms. So why don't we see for number of bedrooms? And click on view. Let's see the stats. Let's see the breakdown in your association. And so there's all the way up to 8 bedrooms. Obviously 7 and 8, there's only one option, but we see most of the properties in Rocky Mount have 3 bedrooms. And it'll actually give you a price. Now, what's kind of cool about this is, so the median price for 3 bedrooms is $170,000, and then for 4 bedrooms is $253,000. So that's a huge increase. Now, there obviously are going to be other factors involved, but we see between 4 and 5 is only about $40,000. So what you could do, and I know RPR does have some stats that allows you to see like the cost benefit analysis of doing adding like a bedroom or redoing the roof, that kind of thing. But there is a huge price increase between 3 and 4 bedrooms. So if your clients look into, if they can do a bedroom for pretty cheap, they may actually get a lot more bang for their buck. Whereas between 4 and 5 bedrooms, there's not that much of a difference, only 40,000 as opposed to like say 70 or 80,000. So that's kind of something cool to look at. Now, obviously there's gonna be other factors involved, but if you do this for bedrooms or bathrooms, and you may notice that the difference between 3 and 4 bathrooms, there's just no difference in price. Is it really worth it spending $30,000 on an extra bathroom? If they're looking to, spend some money on renovations. And let's do this one more time. We'll do it for, let's say high school. Now, or actually do elementary school. There may only be one high school in Rocky Mountain. So let me do it for elementary school, see if it's different. Okay, so we have the different elementary schools, and some of them don't have a lot of numbers, but you may want to look at, if you have the map for the schools and see, okay, which houses have the best value, however you want to use this. That is a really cool thing. I know some people, what they'll do is they'll actually draw map overlays. We talked about that in the Flexmls 101 and 201, drawing shapes around for the school district, but then drawing around the actual boundaries for the schools. So then they could get information that way. Okay, so let's just sum up what we did. So for a statistical CMA, basically the only reason you're doing the statistical CMA is for number crunch. You want to see information about something in the system. So my example here is we want to see the subdivisions that are hot in Rocky Mount. So what I did is I'm going to go to status, and this time instead of doing since the beginning of the year, we'll just go back 6 months. So we practice this toggle, this absolute date range to a relative date range. So we'll go 6 months back. Maybe even we'll go 3 months back. So since the coronavirus and things have been getting really, really hot, we're gonna go 3 months back. Yep. And then we're gonna do, now we could do city of Rocky Mount, but there are other cities in your area. So instead what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to add a field to the search. I'm gonna type in the word listing because I'm gonna do listing selling association. I'm gonna do Rocky Mount. we have 982. I'm going to go up to CMA and then use all results. And like I said before, if you have more than 150 results, it'll gray out these first two options, and it says that right up here. And it automatically goes to statistical CMA, which is fine. We'll click on next step. And then again, I'm going to add the median calculation. I always find it's nice to add medians. And then we'll do the group the statistical CMA by. This is the key thing for the stat CMAs. You have to decide how you want to group it. I like to do subdivision, or maybe you could do city. Let's do marketing city this time. Click on view. So here are all the cities in your, should be for your Rocky Mountain. Unless I didn't narrow it down, looks like there's a lot of cities here. Let's go back, let's do subdivision just to make sure this is working right. I want to just make sure, okay, we have Rocky Mountain, go to CMA, use all results, and we'll do subdivision. And click on view. So these are going to be all the subdivisions. And then like we did before, we scrolled through and then we saw, I'm just making a note real quickly, hold on. And then we just went through and saw which subdivisions are hot. So my example before was someone wanted to work the open houses in the hot areas in town. And this is how we found it out, is he did a statistical CMA and then plugged in subdivision. Do we have any questions? Okay, so let's continue on. Now, before I go into any stats reports, I want to summarize something we did earlier, the compare tab. Now, the compare tab, you can do it with a lot of results, but it makes a lot more sense to just do it once you've narrowed it down. So we're gonna do Rocky Mount. Okay, so we got 100 listings, 100 active and pending with showing. So if I go to the compare tab, what you're going to see is you're going to see the yellow, which is the current listing, and that's up here. But then it's going to do some basic stats for all those other listings. So the average price is for list price, so the original price and list price, so 220, whereas the median is 159. This is why I really like using stats that have the median, because there's a huge difference between 220 and 159. And then we also see, so the average days on market, cumulative days on market versus the median. Huge difference as well. So what's happening is we have some houses that are overpriced and people are refusing to drop that value. So they're staying on the market much longer, where the median is a more useful number. And then we see that here by like that high. And so obviously like something like 1,800 or 1,800,000 that's been on the market forever. So they're just not budging on the price. But see some great numbers here. But what I really like is the search statistics. This is where it really breaks down and gives you some good information. Yes, Kay, this is being recorded. And so you'll get access to the recording later today once it's done processing. Okay, so we see active and pending, but then we see like the median bedrooms, the median baths, median square footage. This is just some great information to look at. You know, if you have a client looking to buy in Rocky Mount or looking to sell, just show them, hey, well, this is what the market currently looks like. So we see the list price per square foot is the median is 89. So the entire city of Rocky Mount is less than the area we were working on with the CMA, that probably is a slightly ritzier area. So the price per square foot was higher. Just keep going down. So we see the days on market, the number of days they've been on. And so some of the stuff like average sold price to list price or sold price to original list price, obviously we don't have any numbers here because we're just looking at active listings, but these things right here, this would work if you're looking at sold listings. So days on market. So that's just some nice stats to look at. And I'm going to actually switch this over for our results to closed and say the last 4 months. So then we can look at the compare tab. Maybe we can go last month. Wow, there's been a lot of sales there. 65, we'll go to the compare tab. So now we see like the sold price has filled in, sold price, list price ratio. So all this information is filled out now because we're including some closed listings. So that's just a really cool thing to use compare tab. Most people don't use it. I usually only use it for getting price per square footage for if I want to do comps, do adjustments. But there's a lot of other stats that give you some information. See, the thing about Flexmls is there's probably about 30 different stats reports. So in this class, I focus on like the 4 or 5 that I find are the most useful. The reason there's so many stats reports is when Flexmls would take on a new customer from a different MLS vendor, that customer would say, hey, we want this, this, and this because our old system has it. Well, Flexmls was very accommodating over many years so there's a lot of stats reports that might be redundant or cover a lot of the same things because they wanted to make sure clients were happy. You know, they're used to doing something a certain way. They wanted to give them a similar stat report. So there are a lot of stats reports. We're just going to focus on the what I feel are the most important ones. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is actually not a stat report, but I find it is very, very important to people, especially when I teach it in person. And a common question that I would get when I was traveling and training is people would say, I know, you know, what I sold in the last year, the last couple of years numbers, but I want to see the listings I've actually sold. And so some people, they've sold so many properties, they just can't, you know, they can't keep them straight. And so I just want to verify the name of your, okay, report generation. So you do have that named. So what we're going to do is I'm going to type in the word report because what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a quick search called report generation. Now, the reason I'm using the report generation one is that by default, it selects all the different property types. Like, whereas here, this is just residential. And so I want all the different property types because if you do, you know, residential, you do land, you do multifamily. Again, what we're doing here is we're going to create a search that is like a report that shows us everything that we've sold. So I'm going to click on report generation. And so the default, all the property types are selected. We see we have 803,000 results. Obviously, that's really high. So what I'm going to do is we see listing selling association is there. I don't want that this time. What I'm looking for is listing selling member. So I'm going to go to listing selling member. And then this is where you're going to type in your last name. Now I'm just going to type in a Smith. And I'm just going to choose a random Smith or find one until I actually get some listings. Okay, so we're going to use Fred Smith. Now you would obviously use your own last name. And then so you want to make sure this is blue and all 4 of these are checked. And so if we go to look at the map, what we will see right now is we see different icons. So by default, and if we go to the list tab, what we will see is it will show closed, but also show expired and actives. So what I may want to do, if you want to see everything you've ever touched, you're good for now. But what I may want to do is, let's see, where is status here? Well, it looks like status is not on the screen, so I'm just going to type in the word status. And I'm just going to click on closed, and I'm going to uncheck the sold date. So what I'm telling the system right now is I'm Fred Smith. I want all my closed listings, everything I've ever closed. And so now we're down to 21. Originally there was 33 because it included all of his expired. But what's great about this is now a search. And so there's a couple different things you can do with the search. And let's go to the list tab just to make sure it's correct. Well, one, so now it has the address and it has, you know, where it's located. This is great for 2 things. One, let's say you're having not a particularly good month, but you had a good year. You could always print this off and put it on your refrigerator as a reminder. This is just, you know, bad month. And you go up to print, show you how to do that, go to print. And we're not going to do detail. We're going to do the 21 results, but we're going to do list instead. We want the 1 line, whatever, we uncheck detail. We click on preview. There we go. And you could obviously do a different view if you'd like. My residential view is one that I created in the 201 class. And so this is the residential view. Again, whatever you want, because the different views have different columns. So you decide how you want to do it. But this is something you could print off and put on your refrigerator. Or I know some brokerages, after I've taught this to them, they'll actually do a breakdown. I'll have cork boards and do the breakdown by individual realtors in that office. And so people can see what they've sold. But another cool thing is, okay, again, this is a search. And I'm return to the search results. We're going to save this. And what I like to do is I like to call this search all my production. I don't need caps. Try that one more time. And I'm going to mark this as a favorite, so it's really easy to get to. And I'm going to click on save. I'm not going to set up a subscription or anything. This is just for me. But what's cool about this is once you've saved this, right now we have 21 results. Well, let's imagine that Fred sells a property tomorrow. He's going to have 22. This is going to be a running tally. But let's say you have a client that says, well, why should I choose you? This is a search that you can email them to say, hey, these are all the properties that I've sold, or, like ever. I mean, you could do it in the last year. You could do it in a specific subdivision or city. Say, hey, I've done a lot of business in this area in the last 6 months. So this is something that if you have someone who's hesitant to use you as a realtor, send them the listings that you've actually closed on, or, send the highlights showing that you're getting, you're 97, 98% on the sold price for the list price or something, however you want to word it. But doing a search on all your production is a really cool thing. So we're going to do this one more time. So to do an all my production search, which is basically, this is answering the question. People will say, hey, I can do a stats report, look at my production and I get numbers, but I just can't remember, I know I sold some properties on Bridgewood, but I don't remember the addresses. And because it was like 5-6 years ago. Very simple. We're going to type in report for report generation. The reason we're doing report generation is because all of the property types are selected. And if you do any of these, if you just were to do residential, you may miss out on some production. Then we're going to scroll down. Not looking at listing and selling association, which is what we did before. We're going to do listing selling member. This is where you're going to put in your last name. So I'm just going to do Fred Smith again. Make sure this is blue. So it's selected. We see down to 17 and then do co-listing, selling, co-selling. So if you're on either side of the transaction, and if you're, you're working with another realtor, so we have 33 results. I go to the list tab. I will see all the closed, but because I didn't narrow it down by status, I also see expired and actives. So what I may want to do is narrow this down by close. So I'm just going to add status. Click on status, and I'm going to do closed. But the default's always going to be like 1 year back for closed. So I'm going to want to uncheck the box because you see he hasn't sold anything in the last year. So uncheck sold. And then we have the 21 results. So these 21 results is a search. I can print it off on a list. And then I could go to save and save the search. So Cass, how can I use this to find a suitable realtor to refer a client in another area? By suitable, I mean, what is your definition of suitable? Someone that sold a lot of properties or someone that just works in a specific area? I mean, what you could do is if you're going to refer someone to, say, New Bern, you could narrow this down to New Bern and then just see what name pops up a lot doing their type of search. Or what you could do is you could do someone that has a lot of sales. So what would make sense is we're going to do saturation analysis probably in the 3rd hour of the class. That is going to be hot ranking report. So you want to see, okay, who's hot? That'll be the ranking report. That's probably what you want to do instead. So we will do that. But from here, what you might want to do is just, again, narrow it down to, like, say, New Bern, and then you go to the list tab, you see listing office. If you had a residential view that shows the selling or the actual member, or here listing member, you could see if someone's been listed a lot. But the saturation analysis report is probably going to be more helpful for you. And we will get to that in a little bit. Okay, so that is the all my production report. And if you were to go back to your dashboard, it's under your saved searches. So you can pull this up at any point, all my production, and it's going to update. So right now, Fred has 21 results, but again, he sells something today, tomorrow he's going to have 22 results. But the fun thing about this is the address and all that information, especially if you're a high producer, it's hard to keep track of all those different properties. And you run stats, you get numbers like, you know, you did 5 million in sales, but like maybe you have a number written down that says you did 5 million sales in 2015, but you can't remember any of those houses, or maybe just a handful. Where are they? Well, this is a great way to do that. Okay, so the other stats reports we're going to do. Now, the actual stats reports are in this section called statistics. And so there's something called my production, market summary, my market, and inventory and production, and market trends. So inventory and production and market trends are actually a group of reports, where market summary and my market are an individual report. So we're going to focus on these two first. Market summary probably will get us close to the break, maybe a little bit of my market, then we'll do the others. So the market summary, you'll notice I have this starred, and it's defaulted for you as well. You usually have 5 things that are defaulted. That is defaulted. So I'm going to go to the market summary. Now the market summary, basically one way to look at the market summary is that it is a visual representation that you can actually print to what is similar to your market stats. Now there's a market stats dashboard that we did in 201. And so like absorption rate, sold days on market, inventory, a lot of this same stuff is available on the market summary report, but you can't print this screen. I mean, physically you could take a screenshot with your computer and print it that way. Whereas the market summary report actually is meant to be printed or emailed. So the market summary report, pay close attention to this explanation. And I talked about this in the previous classes. You can only select one thing in the market summary report that you can run stats on. So that could be like a city, like a subdivision, a county, or it can be a map shape. And in the last 2 classes, we drew map shapes. Now the map shape is one thing, but it include multiple things. It could include multiple subdivisions, or, you know, it could be east of a certain highway or something. So that's how you run stats. But to do actual stats, we're gonna go to customize, and let me just run it without doing anything, because I want this to say just residential. When you see it just say residential, it means it's running it for everything in North Carolina regional. And what we see is, okay, huge drop in the number of active listings. Why? Well, people are buying properties up. Listing prices are going up, which makes sense. Absorption rate is dropping. So absorption rate is the number of months it would take up to buy up all inventory if there's no new inventory. So generally 0 to 4 months is a seller's market. Terms are favorable to the seller because there's a lot of people want properties. 4 to 5 is a neutral market, and 5 and above is a buyer's market, meaning houses are staying on the market. Buyers are more likely to get what they want. So that is a really cool stat to look at. Now, sold to list ratio, we're noticed, okay, well, maybe there's starting to be some bidding wars or something because of how people are buying properties right now. Now, this is some fascinating stats, and what I really like, though, is to come down here. Like I told you, my love of median prices. The reason being, well, look at the median list price, 287 versus average. Again, you got some properties that are really skewing it. So different stats reports will show different stats. I like this one for the median, and especially for like median cumulative days on market. 18 versus 68, that's a huge difference. And we see that the days on market have actually gone down. So this is some fascinating stats, but the problem with this right here is this is everything in North Carolina regional. Terry asks, can you print a report of all statuses for a past period of time? I guess I'm not sure what you're asking. You, I mean, you can print a search that has multiple statuses, but
I'm looking at I'm looking for a report that'll show me what was listed, sold, expired, etc., say July 1st, 2017, for the whole month of July in 2017.
That sounds more like what you want to do. It would be like an actual search,
Uh-huh.
and then just then you could you would export, basically you could bring those numbers into another program. You could export them.
Okay.
Um, let me
All right.
let me play around with that, and that's not something I'm doing during class. But after class, let me play around
Okay.
with it, give you some ideas, and see if what would work, because there might be a few
Sounds,
different ways, but I'm not quite exactly sure what you're asking for.
okay. Sounds good.
Okay. That's where that, like those 30 different stats reports Flexmls has, there might be one that is exactly what you're looking for, but I just haven't used it in a while. Okay, so this stat report is interesting, but again, this is everything for North Carolina regional, which is a huge geographic area. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to customize, go to new location, and this is what I'm looking for. The new location box, this is city, postal code, et cetera. If I click inside this box, you'll notice that it gives me some subdivisions and some map overlays. So these map overlays are things that I've drawn in the last 2 classes. Remember, we were doing hotspots or like areas maybe like for Airbnbs. So any map shape that you draw, you can do a stats report for. So you just double click and then you do it for that. And you'll notice it offers some subdivision. Now people get confused. They think these are the only options. No, these are just suggestions, things that have been run recently. So if I were to type in something like Rocky Mount, we see a subdivision Rocky Mount and Lake Haven, but also the city of Rocky Mount. And I'm going to use my Willow Creek because I was working with that earlier. So if we were to run these stats on Willow Creek, and it's going to go back to last year. So you'll see right here, it shows every month for the last year. But what's cool about this is you can do for the 2017. So if you want to do the July 2017, it would be just one blip in time. But if we were to do July 2018 and then go back for the entire year and click on search, you are going to see, now there's just not a lot of stats because this is for a specific subdivision. So obviously this is not a great one. So let's do this time for the city of Rocky Mount. We'll do new location. We'll keep we'll go back to 2018 again. And we'll do July. Click on search. So then you will see listing prices. And when we go to the My Market, it might have a little better of a breakdown to what you're looking for, but I may just have to do some more research. So what's cool about this is we're going back is I went to Rocky Mount back in, so this would be 2017, 2018. If you're dealing with a client says, well, back when we purchased the house at this time, this is what the market was like. Well, you can actually pull up the stats to see if that is the case. And again, I always come back down to that summary stats because I really like that median list price. So the median, the average are quite a bit different. But you do see, okay, there was a 14% increase, year over year. So let's run this again for Rocky Mount. I keep wanting to say Rocky Point because I've taught there at Puerto Penasco in Mexico. So I get those two mixed up. We'll do Rocky Mount and we'll just do it for the last year. Now it's only going to show up to August because September isn't finished yet. But we see, okay, the number of listings, look at that. That is just crazy. Almost half the inventory in a year. You see the prices are gradually moving up. And one thing you'll notice is whenever you see the question mark, that gives you information. Always read your hover text, information about what this chart means. So active listings on the 15th of the month. This might kind of help what you're looking for to see what's active versus new listings, sold listings. But also, if this wrench, again, customize this chart. You're not going to know about this unless you read that hover text. We can do pended as well. So then we see, and these actually, if you hover over a point, it gives you the actual number. So 231, 230. So we have active, pending, new, and sold listings for Rocky Mount. But that new listings or the active listings is just insane to me. I understand, and that makes sense. That lines up almost perfectly with the absorption rate. At the beginning of the year, you started, about a year ago, you started around a neutral market and things were heating up. And then when the coronavirus thing, the shutdown started, much hotter. So I'm not there right now, but I know, talking from people across the country, I know a lot of the people from bigger cities are leaving and buying properties that were within a couple hours or within a commute from that bigger city. Okay, so do you want to see for July 13th, 2017? Okay, so we'll do it again and go back. So we'll do, actually we could just do the beginning or the end of the year for this 2017. And so July will be included in that list. And let's do amount. And so for July, now this number is calculated in the middle of July. So I'll have to look through different status reports to see if I can get it for specifically on the 31st, how that will work. But this gets you pretty close, and you see the number of listings for that. And then you see the year over year. So the market was not too hot in December, but it looks like it's definitely started to heat up. In the 2017, at least properties were going quicker. Okay, so that is your market summary report. And let's just kind of sum up what we did again. What you're doing is, when you go into this originally, you're going to see this. You're going to see it say residential. And when you see residential, that means it's showing you everything in North Carolina regional. So like 12 boards or whatever you have, Wilmington, Brunswick County, all kinds of stuff, which is interesting as the aggregate. But, if you're just working one area, you're just working Rocky Mount, you really want to narrow this down. So we're going to go to customize, new location, and we're going to click inside this box that says city, postal code, and you're given some ideas. These are just suggestions. You can do more than this. So again, I could do that Willow Creek or whatever subdivision I want to do, or I could use a map shape that I've drawn before, but we're just going to keep it simple. Let's do Tarboro City, and we can only select one option. So if you needed to include multiple cities or multiple something, draw a map shape that includes those things, then you can use that. And then I'm going to click on search. So now this is for Tarboro residential, and we see this similar system going on. Huge drop in active listings, absorption rates dropped way down. So the list price ratio, actually a little bit more variety here. And so we're actually seeing the price volume we dropped down too. So some unique stuff is going on here. It looks like properties are selling, but they're selling for a lot less. And that's something we see right here. We see 148,000. A lot of times if you can't figure out what the charts are saying, I always jump to summary stats. So we see last year, 148,000 was the median. Now it's 120. So this could be, there people are just paying less for the houses, or maybe the nicer houses have already been purchased. And so the ones that are still available, the inventory that's drying up is the stuff that's, people necessarily didn't want before. I don't work there, so I don't know. So a lot of times when you look at these numbers, you want to make sure you actually understand what's going on in the market. But so this is for the last year for Tarboro. And once you've ever run any of these, you're going to go to previous locations. And in previous locations, you'll see all the stuff that you've run. And we even see so Rocky Mount, the different dates that I ran. And if you like something, what I do is I just click on star to add it to my favorites. And if I go to customize, I have an option to pull up my favorite locations. And so I see all my favorite locations here. And then I can, run this whenever I want. And so you see these were run in August because I just did it, but it's July. That means I taught a class before, and it doesn't always update it every new month. So if you run it again, you may want to change it to the current new month. But you can email or print these. the thing I like to do is advanced is you can export all the downloadable data. So if you export the data, it's the numbers, and you can, if you have another stats program or what I like to do is I would teach how to do infographics in my classes. So if you want something to share with your clients on a quarterly basis, you could create an infographic. You take the stats from Flexmls, then an infographic that's really easy to use, like, number of listings, the median price, that kind of thing. And so if you go to advanced, export all downloadable data, you can send that data to a spreadsheet. It's just a CSV file, a comma separated value. And then you could use those stats for something else. So this is the market summary report. Again, to click on it, or you could use your quick launch, which I usually do. Pull up your market summary report. The key thing here is when it says residential, that means everything. That's way too much information, and it especially doesn't give you a lot of value when you're such a large geographic area. So I go to customize, new location, click inside this box. These are just suggestions. If you know what you're looking for, type it in. And whatever date range you want to do, if you want to go back to 2017 or 2015, click on search. And then there you go. Okay, so we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll start up again at be 11 o'clock your time. Okay, in the last hour of the class, we are going to be covering a few other stats reports, and it'll probably be about half an hour because we haven't had any questions during this class. But the other stat report I want to show right away is the My Market. So the market summary, which we just did, is quite popular. Another cool one is the My Market. Now, the key thing between the market summary report and the My Market is I look at it this way. The market summary report requires one location. Again, one location. So that's a city, a subdivision, or like a map shape. Whereas the My Market requires a search. Now, a search can include a location, but there is a key difference. And the My Market does show different things than the market summary report. And so if I just go to My Market, I will see again where it says property type residential. And when we see that which just says residential, that tells us that this is everything in North Carolina Regional. And we see the months of inventory, active listings, new listings, sold listings. So what we saw before, we see a trend down, and then we see these going up. And then so what we see is we see active listings, new listings, sold listings, months inventory. So that's just one option though. If you see the inventory, you see the down arrow chevron, you see that there are other things. So we see inventory. Well, also we see sold days on market versus sold price. So here's days on market, cumulative days on market. And what's cool about these, watch your mouse behavior. Notice how it gives you that finger, the index finger. It tells you can unclick it or click something. So if you just want to see days on market, not cumulative, and then there's the average sold price. And we come down and we see sold days on market, sold cumulative days on market. Go to the next one. We have sold days on market versus units. So I'm going to remove the cumulative days on market. So here are sold days on market, and then the units, the number of listings that are sold. If we scroll down, we see active, new listings, sold days on market, and sold cumulative days on market. Now these are averages. So that's why I like to use the other stats report instead. Let's go to volume and average price. And so here's going to be your sold volume, sale price, your average list price, and your average sold price. So maybe if I just want to only include the average sold price, there we go. And so it has a nice breakdown, sold price per list price ratio. So every month. And then finally, we have hot sheet price change trends. Now, what's interesting about the hot sheet price change trends, it's almost always between like 4 and 6% everywhere I go. And so what's really interesting about this is if we start to narrow down this My Market by like subdivisions or cities, you might get a better idea. Like some places you'll see the price always goes up. Like maybe one month it's super hot, so there's actually like bidding wars, people are raising the prices of properties. Well, what's cool about this screen is if you have a client that's hesitant to drop the price on their property, run stats for that subdivision or that city and say, well, this is what the average price drop has been this month. Why don't we shoot for that? So it's kind of a cool thing you can do. But what we're doing right now is we're looking at residential. We're looking at everything. So we're going to do what we did with the market summary report, and we are going to narrow this down. So the same process, we're going to go up to customize. And this time it says quick search or save search. So you can do a quick search here, or you can pull up a search that you've saved. I'm just going to pull up a quick search real quickly, and we'll do residential. And when I do it like this, it seems kind of weird. Can't quite figure out what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm going to do Rocky Mount because this setup is different from what you're using for the quick search. And I'm going to click on city. And it gives me dates. So it goes back 2 years by default, but you can go back up to 3 years and click on search. So now what this is going to do is this is going to run this for the marketing city of Rocky Mount. That's one way to do it. Now, the other way to do it is go to customize and pull up save search. Now, when I go to save search, I only have 2 searches saved. So if you want to create a search while you're doing this, and the reason you'd save a search for this is if you're going to keep doing this over and over. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do city of Rocky Mount. Open this up into a new tab. So I don't want to lose the work that I'm working on. And I'm going to save this search, but because this stat report goes across multiple statuses, what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck status. So no status, just have city of Rocky Mount. So 9,627, that's fine because I want to run stats. I want to see the differences between active to pending to close, that kind of thing. If you're narrowing it down by status, you won't see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on save. And I'm going to save this search. And this is one of those searches that I want to make as a favorite. I talked about this in Flexmls 101. So I'll just say city of Rocky Mount. And then I'm going to say stats. Now, I always call it stats because whenever I see stats in this search name, it tells me that no statuses are selected. It tells me that I'm using this search just specifically for statistical reports, not for like a client. I'll mark it as a favorite, and I'm going to click on save. So now I have a saved search, and I'm going to refresh my market report because I loaded it before I saved it, so that wouldn't be in that saved search. So let's do this one more time. My market. If I go to customize, save searches, there we go. City of Rocky Mount stats, and again, it can go back up to 3 years. So we'll actually do that. We'll go back to 2017 and click on search. So now this is just going to be for the city of Rocky Mount, the marketing city. And let's start up at the top. We'll do the inventory first. So here is our inventory for the city of Rocky Mount. So we see a bump back in 2018, but it is just slowly gone inventory. It just keeps getting purchased more and more. So maybe there was a bunch of new development at this point. So we see that the prices are creeping up. And if we go down, we see active, new listings, sold listings, months inventory. And so we really do see the huge change in the last 3 years. Now let's go to the next one. Let's go sold days on market versus sold price. Sold volume, average sale price, sold days on market, cumulative days on market. Like I said before, I'm not a huge fan of these stats right here because they're averages. And as we've seen in the other reports, the median gives us much more valuable information. Sold days on market versus units, active new sold listings, pretty interesting. We go to volume and average price. So this shows us the active volume, new volume, sold volume. And then we see bunch of other stats. But one thing we notice here is, so there's clearly some cyclical behavior, and the winter sales are drop way down and then they go up higher in the summer or in the warmer months. And we're definitely seeing that again, but maybe even a little higher. I mean, it looks like that in May 2019, this was kind of like a abnormal month. Mostly it usually gets to 11, 12 million, but we see 11, 12, 15. So that is that extra sales from the coronavirus. And then we go to hot sheet price change trends. And then so we see a range of price. Now I told you before, if you just do the aggregate, it almost always says between 4 and 6%. Doesn't matter anywhere you go in the US. That's always seems to be what I see. But then you see huge ranges, you know, up to 8, 9% drop back in the day. Now you're only dropping like only 2%. So, you know, if you have a client, you're just not getting that movement on your house. You know, see what is the average for dropping the price, 2%. Maybe let's shoot for that. So I find this is what my favorite part of my market is, seeing the hot sheet price change trends. Really, the purpose of this class is learning how to use stats to back up your arguments with your clients. So, you know, they're convinced about something. Well, let's run the stats to see what it actually says, or, you know, they insist that their house has been on the market too long. Well, you run a stat report and see what the actual days on market are. And maybe they're half of what the average is or the medians. Is like, yeah, don't worry right now. But you have stats to back up the arguments you have with your client about, you know, how you should proceed. So that was the My Market report. Go to customize, do a quick search on the fly, or I can pull up a saved search. Now the key thing here again is the My Market report requires a search. Now a search can include a shape. It can include bedrooms, bathrooms. It can include a city, whatever you want in that search, you can do it and run stats on it. Whereas the market summary report is just allows one location. That location's a city, subdivision. It's a any map shape, but there's a difference. So the My Market lets you do a bit more, and we see that with these different options. But it does rely a lot more on the averages, whereas the market summary does give you medians. So my preference is for the market summary report. But like the other ones, you can email, print, advanced, you can export all downloadable data. So if you want to export this into Excel or Google Sheets, whatever product you use, and you can then create infographics, whatever, that is an option. So we're gonna do a few more stat reports. Now the next one is under menu, and it's actually in a section called inventory and production. So if I go to inventory production, there's actually a bunch of reports here. So we see summary stats, terms of sale, see a bunch of them. Now I'm just going to focus on the two that are the most popular. The first one is summary statistics, and this literally is what it sounds like. You're going to get summary stats for a period of time. So we go to summary statistics. And then we'll just do residential. Now, by default, it's going to say member, but you're going to want to do MLS. You want to do everything. So let's do member, and we're going to do Rocky Mount. And we'll actually try what let's try what Terry was talking about earlier. Let's try 7/1/2017, 7/31/2017. So if you want to see everything just for the month of July, let's run this. Give it a second to load. So this would show for the month of July, everything that was sold, new, pending. This Terry, might be what you're looking for. You said how to select dates. Let me do that one more time. Your dates are down at the bottom. Oh, give me 1 second. And then you can just type them in, or you can click on the calendar. Okay, so if you need details like the MLS numbers, addresses, then that's going to be an actual search. The difference between the stats just give you in output numbers, and that's what the stat reports do. Whereas what you're looking for is going to be very similar to what I did with the All My Production. Is if you did a search just for the month of July, then and you did unselected all statuses, then you could see what was active, what was not, that kind of thing. So again, I'll do some searching and try to send you some stuff, see if that's what you're looking for. So we'll do this one more time. We'll do residential. Let's just do Rocky Mount. I mean, you can do other ones if you'd like. Do MLS, and we'll do everything since the beginning of the year. 1/1/2020. And next, so these are going to be all the residential listings, and you see it right up here. It tells you what your search parameters are. So everything that's sold, new pending listings all this year. And this summary stats report does have median prices. That's why I like to use this one as well. So we see a median sold price of 183,000 versus the average 223. I mean, there can be huge difference sometimes in these prices. Sold price to original list price ratio. And so that is the summary statistics report. So to get into this again, we're going to go into our menu and we're looking for inventory and production. Otherwise, I can type in inventory, pull up the inventory and production, and I'm going to do summary statistics. And we'll do residential. This time I'm going to do a city of Tarboro. And I'm not going to narrow down my association. I assume it's mostly just your association that has all those listings. Do MLS, do 1/1/2020, and maybe I want to just do the first six months. Click on next. So this is showing me for everything of the city of Tarboro. So median sale price is 105,000. So it does seem like when there's multiple agents involved, you are getting a higher price than if it's just one agent, or they could be either on both sides or just one agent for each client. But if you got, 3 or 4 agents involved, it is kind of interesting. A huge jump in price. So that is summary statistics. Now the final one I'm going to show is going to be your basically your market summary report, which is your not your market summary, sorry, your saturation analysis. So your ranking report. So do that same thing. We're going to do inventory and production, and what we're looking for is saturation analysis. This one gets people confused. The market share report. So saturation analysis, and this is where you do ranking. So I know Kay was asking, well, if you want to find someone in another board to recommend, this is how you do it. We're going to go to saturation analysis, and maybe just focus on residential, but you could do multiples if you'd like. And we're just going to run this for everyone in North Carolina regional, and then we'll break it down in different areas. So we scroll down. Now I could do a specific association, which I'll do next, but let's just do it first time with every North Carolina regional. The key thing here is the market share. Market share right here. This market share is how you do ranking. And as it says, this is all associations, or actually we'll just do Rocky Mount this time, and then we'll do a different association for the purposes of what Kay was asking. How do I find someone else in a different board? Let's do Rocky Mount. So I'm going to do everything since the beginning of this year, 1/1/2020. And I'm going to click on next. Now this is a multi-step process, so you just have to make sure you understand what this is. So by default, it says ranking members, meaning realtors. Offices would be an office. So like a Coldwell Banker branch, whereas the company would be all the Coldwell Banker branches. And then when you rank companies and offices, it intermingles them. So the reason being is you may have a boutique firm that actually does a lot of business and it's just an office. And so it's by itself. But if there's a company like 21st Century, Remax, Coldwell Banker, it's going to have the flagship office, and then it's going to have all the satellite offices. So when you rank the company, it runs all the stats for Coldwell or all the stats for Remax. So that is the difference. And then rank members in office. This is basically how brokers can headhunt for other people. They'll see how people are ranked in office, or individual people will rank themselves in comparison to their other members. Like if you're part of an office that has 200 people, then you want to see where you're located. So on rank members, use a selection. Now my personal preference, I like to do dollar volume instead of the number of listings, how it's sorted. and I'm just going to do sold, but I'm going to switch it to listing or selling members. If the realtor is on either side of the transaction, they get included in the sale. Don't do listing and selling members. That assumes that's double dipping. That assumes you're on both sides of the transaction, dual agency, which depending where you're at, it may not be that common. Some places it's very common. And then it says calculate numbers and volume using sides. What this means is if you have this checked and okay, so there's 2 realtors on the listing side, then you get half the credit. And if there's two agents on the buyer side, then you'd get half the credit. So that theoretically, you might end up having a number that says you sold 205.5 listings, meaning you were counting half credits. Where if you uncheck this, then you're getting full credits. So it's just personal preference. Some people are always involved. Like at least when I was in Arizona, how they had it set up that the team lead was always the listing agent. And then whoever was actually working on that listing was the co-listing. So they always did it by side. So they always got half credit. But like the broker or the team lead was, that's how they shared the sale. So I'm going to keep this checked, but a personal preference, and we'll do 300. I'm not sure how many, excuse me, how many members you currently have, excuse me. Click on next. Allergies are horrible here in Colorado. Click on next. And I'm gonna scroll down the bottom. Let's just see how many people have actually sold. So looks like 188. But okay, so the top was the Walters team. So they did 71 sides, and then you'll notice Kimberly has 45.5. So she was one of the realtors on one of the sides. So that's where you do the halves. But if you run this without sides, where you're ranking, like Kimberly could be really, really high with sides, but for full listings, she might actually, they're a very different number. So people will run it by sides or not with sides and see where they're located. So what you do is, you hold down Control F, or if you have a Mac, Command, and then you just plug in your last name and see where you're located. So I'm just going to put in, see if there's a Jeff. Okay, so there's a Jeff Stone, so that he's at 179. So what we see that he's 1.5 sides, and he sold $86,500 for a listing. So, and this is the average. He averages 57,000 per listing. And if you scroll up to the top, you'll see what these individuals things do. We have what's your percentage of the total number of listings, and then the total volume. So let's run this one more time, but we're going to run it without sides. Let's run it without sides. So we see Walters dropped from like 85 to 60 because they're not getting that, they're only getting the full credit. If we go to Command F, let's try Jeff again. So Jeff Stone is now 2. So he gets the full credit in 135,000. So again, if you run it by sides versus not sides, it will give you different numbers. So just personal preference. Oh, I don't want to print that, but you can print. So what we're going to do is we'll do this one again, but we're going to focus on a different area. So we'll do saturation analysis. Again, if you see the market share report, you know that means this is the ranking report. And we'll do residential. And so Kay is looking to refer a client. So let's do, we'll do Topsail. And we'll do market share. And let's see. Okay, I guess I can do the association there, or it might be easier just to do it down here. And then I'm going to do everything since the beginning of the year. So we're looking to recommend. So we'll do rank members, use a selection, again, I like dollar volume, and then I'm just going to do 1,000. I don't know how many members they have, but I know it's not 1,000 listing or selling members. And you might even want to include last year's calculation. You want to say, okay, is this person consistently selling a lot, or are they just having a really good year? So we're going to include last year's calculations and then click on next. Run this, and then, okay, so we see the people who are at the top. Now, if you're looking for someone that's in your same company, like a same branch, like Landmark Sotheby's, I believe that one's pretty popular. So then you could choose Michael Nelson, or, you know, however you want to do it, but you actually see the volume that they've done. And then you see the volume that they did last year. This is one I really like. So for example, Frank has done this year almost 19 million, but last year he basically did 7 million. So he's been pretty consistent. Define sides. Okay, so the easiest way to understand sides is, let me actually do a search. And we'll do closed. Okay, we'll do closed in the last 3 months. Oh, actually, that's way too much. Okay, we'll do closed within the last 7 days. Okay, so the easiest way for me to explain sides is I'm actually going to go to the list tab. And I'm going to create a new view. Now, I covered this in the 201 class, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the fields. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add listing member, co-listing member, then selling member and co-selling member. And so then when we click on, oh, let me change this to just say sold. So to understand sides, what I do is I always do the listing, co-listing, selling, and co-selling. Now, the reason this is important is, okay. So right here, we have Kurt Bonney. Kurt Bonney is just, he has one sale, and the WWP John Monroe team has one sale. Now, if we go to sides, what that does is, okay, so for Alicia, she has half a side, and Al has half a side. So if we count by sides, they only get 0.5 of the sale, so it's less. Now, if you don't include sides, then each of them get the full sale. And then, so that's really how it works is if you want to make sure that people aren't, you know, how do I say it? It's one of those things that people will use the stat report that looks best for them. So if you're not using sides, you can actually have more volume sold. Whereas if you're using sides, you're showing that, okay, it's getting broken down by 2 agents. We're only giving them half the credit for that sale. So when like people would say, well, they run their stats like, well, these numbers don't add up. What I would do is I would physically look at all their sales, create a list like this that has the listing, co-listing, selling, co-selling, and then I'd add up, okay, half a sale, half a sale, half a sale until it adds up to the number that matches. So that's how sides works. You only get half the credit if you're 1/2 of the agent on one side. I hope that makes sense. But that's why when you run versus sides, not versus sides, you can see some very, very different numbers because it just depends on how the system is calculated. Let's scroll down. And so right here, Jennifer is, if we count by side, she has half a sale. Tammy has half a sale, whereas the non-member is going to have a full sale because they're not sharing it with anyone. But like I hear, Carolyn, half a sale, half a sale. Penny's going to have a full sale. Okay, so we'll go back into inventory and production. Saturation analysis. The key thing is down at the bottom, you want to do market share. Always do market share so you can run stats. So this is the ranking report, ranking yourself against other realtors. Now you can do it for all associations, or it may make sense to do it for just your specific association. Let's just see who has been hot in the last month. So that's actually already defaulted. We'll click on next, rank members. use the selection. Now the key thing, again, I always like to do dollar volume, listing or selling member if you're on either side of the transaction. The sides means you only get half credit if you're sharing, you know, the listing with another realtor or you're sharing the sale with another member. Let's just do 200 and click on next. And so we see, okay, the Walters team in the last month has sold 17 sides because we did sides. So they did 17 sides at 2.3 million. So remember that number. And then we'll do it without sides. So 17 sides with 2.3 million. Whereas they actually have 12 actual listings and there's less volume. Okay, so I am short just because there's really been no questions. We have a small class. So are there any final questions? Okay, okay, ask Kate. On my quick search, I have to add search garage. I've forgotten how to keep it as your default. Great question. So what you do is when you're in a search, and let's say we're gonna add garage. So let's see. Just do total number of garage space. Once you have this here, it's gonna disappear unless you go up here, click on save, save quick search template, and then you just create your own template. So 1.5, my quick search. Just do the residential view, click on save. So now total garage spaces is always gonna be there for your new template. You can't save over the 1-residential. That's the default, but now my quick search now has total number of garage spaces. Any other questions? Okay, well, let me stop the recording.